مثلی هست که میگیم حقیقت تلخه، اما همیشه این مثل رو برای کسانی به کار میبریم که خلاف حق عمل میکنند. برای کسی که دروغ میگه، برای کسی که حقیقت رو نمیخواد ببینه، برای اونا میگیم که حقیقت تلخه. اما خود حقیقت برای همه، برای بشریت نه فقط تلخ نیست، بلکه خب خیلی هم شیرین، زیبا و باشکوهه، خیلی درخشان و دلنشین حقیقت. یک صحنه از درخشش حقیقت در کنفرانس اخیر مقاومت ایران در پاریس، در شهادت‌های ژنرال فیليپس در مورد اشرف و اشرفیان و همینطور در صحبت‌های دخترش سارا فیليپس در مورد زنان اشرف بود که پیش چشم‌های همه گذاشته شد. اونقدر این صحنه گویا و درخشان هست که اصلا نیازی به توضیح بیشتر نیست. تماشا کنیم و روح صادق انسان رو تقدیس کنیم.
Thank you. Madam Rajave, distinguished guests, freedom-loving people around the world, and most importantly, the 3,400 residents of Camp Ashraf. I'm honored to be here with you today. Those of you at Ashraf, you've endured much while spending nearly 9 years in virtual captivity. Make no qualms about it. The first 6 years were under the protection of the coalition forces. And for the past 3 years, under the barbaric captivity of the al-Maliki regime. This speech is about my friends at Camp Ashraf, who I know personally. But it's important also that this speech is to bring attention to the world in highlighting the plight of those 3,400 men and women. I can only imagine how the mullahs laughed when, under orders, my unit shut down and confiscated the MEK radio transmitters, silencing the voice of freedom for the Iranian people. The reason given to me was because the MEK were terrorists. So obviously, they're sending terroristic broadcasts. The decision to cut this link off between the MEK and the people living under the iron grip of the mullahs was ridiculous. When you step back and look at these decisions, you really got to wonder. Consolidating the MEK at Camp Ashraf, I was part of that. Disarming them, I was there. Placing them under detention-like restrictions, I implemented that. And silencing their radio. It sounds like we were working for the mullahs instead of the multinational coalition forces. While the soldiers of the 89th Military Police Brigade, my brigade, detained 3,400 members at Camp Ashraf, the mullah regime was simultaneously providing weaponry and EFPs and other munitions designed to kill those soldiers. And we were actually doing the mullah's bidding by taking the MEK off of the battlefield and out of the equation. The mullahs could not have paid or bribed or extorted or blackmailed such an effective effort to thwart their number one opposition, the MEK. We, the U.S., we did it for them. To make matters worse, we walked away from a written promise to protect them, thereby abandoning the very people who can bring about change in Iran. We left them to the real terrorists. I lose sleep because I was the spokesperson for the coalition forces with the MEK at Camp Ashraf. As the commander of the 89th MP Brigade, I conducted sweep operations, looking for violations of the agreement the MEK made to disarm. I never found a violation. I directed my forces to search every square inch of that 36 square kilometer facility, and not one piece of contraband, not one violation was found.
In 2003, my understanding of the world was shattered. I learned, contrary to very popular belief, especially in America, that not all women in the Southwest Asia region remain complacent in the face of oppression. There's a special group of women who do not just let their lives be dictated for them. My father, who was in Iraq at the time, told me, he called me on his international cell phone. I was in a dorm room at the time. I remember him calling and saying, Sarah, I've found your modern day Amazons, those women warriors, the type that you are always seeking and reading about. You will never guess. He told me, you will never guess where I have found them. It was that day that I learned about these brave women, and actually what was almost more shocking to me is the fact that it wasn't just women, there was men standing at their side in defiance of tyranny. I learned about the Mujahideen Nikak, and I begged my father, I begged him, let me meet these women. Even better, let me take their mantle and let me fight with them. They'd managed to not only break stereotypes and roles, but they'd overcome insurmountable odds to rise up to a position of authority and power. These women and men of the MEK believe in democracy and equal rights. They believe in freedom. What a beautiful word, freedom. The Webster's Dictionary defines freedom as the quality or state of being free, the absence of necessity, coercion, or constraint in choice or action. Liberation from restraint from the power of another. There are not many people in the world as valiant as these women of the MEK, who I had the absolute honor of being able to correspond with. We would talk in our emails and in our letters of one day meeting in a free, not only Ashraf, but Tehran as global sisters, and finally being able to cross those borders. My father... My father has given many speeches lately defending his stance that the MEK should be taken off the terrorist list. Many of you believe him, and you know this to be true as well. But for those of you that might question this, that might question the stance of my father and even his character, using his daughter as a tool, I want to tell you something. When my father first took over in Iraq, and this is a true story, he would warn me, Sarah, do not be so starry-eyed. Do not be so excited by these stories I tell you, because they might still be falsehoods. These are terrorists we're talking about. He was as skeptical as any American would be concerning the disposition of the MEK and the perception that they were terrorists. But when I told you about my character and standing up here today, the apple does not fall far from the tree. My character is like my father's, and he walks with open eyes and with an open heart. When he began to realize that the people of Camp Ashraf were not terrorists, he began to advocate for them and urge me to pass along what information I could. By the time he left Iraq, my father knew without question that what he had originally been instructed about the people of Ashraf was a blatant falsehood and propaganda to empower corruption and ruthless men. I can only hope that those listening in America who actually do have the power to affect change in the situation for several thousand good people are listening. As things are, I am afraid for the people of Camp Ashraf. I'm afraid that the women and the men are going to find themselves facing a force without any defense. If all I can offer standing here today as a weapon for them is my voice, then I shout for their removal off the terrorist list. These people are good, they are not terrorists. Thank you.